Hey guys, SoCal Val here. You are listening to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast.
The world did end last night in AEW, and MJF come face to face with his devil. And who would have thought that? Who was it? Well, Dave thought it was right. But anyway, welcome everybody to Hitting the Turnbuckle channel, a New Year's Eve special, the last one of 2023. This is non-alcoholic beer. I'm not drinking a proper beer on this podcast. You can get other non-alcoholic beers from your shops in and around the UK and the US, because not only are we joined by my usual broadcast colleague, yes, Dave Robinson, the problem child. Dave, good evening. How are you?
I'm all good, man. I'm all good. Looking forward to chopping it up and talking some World's End.
Indeed, indeed. And we wouldn't, we thought to ourselves, who could we get to help us talk all things World's End? Then none other than the man from the Honor the Elite Facebook page and now on Twitter or on X, depending on what you want to call it. It's our good buddy Gary Joe. Gary Joe, good. Is it morning still over there?
Yeah, good morning, slash good afternoon, over there.
Thanks, man.
I would like to personally thank Adam and Dave for having me on here. I can't say it enough. You guys have been very open arms, earlier, this summer, and it's success to all of us. Going to 2024, I see you guys, the success rate is really booming over there. I couldn't be more happy for you guys. So
thanks, man. And we're looking forward to as well. Your Honor the Elite is going from strength to strength, both on Facebook and X. And it's great to have you back to do some AEW Worlds End. I think we will start pre-show first. First thing I would say, I love that stage, by the way, the World's End stage. I thought it was brilliant on there.
Yeah.
It's also good to see a jam-packed crowd, which is very nice as well from an AEW perspective, because they do get a lot of crap for their crowds, and it was good to see it at full strength last night.
Yeah, it's a sellout, I think.
Yeah.
I think New York's always a great territory, isn't it, for wrestling
Yeah.
and wrestling fans? So I'm not sure. I think transport links are pretty good in New York as well for people to get to Long Island. But they turned out in their droves last night and packed out that crowd.
Yeah, they did it, and it was really good to see. I don't like all that crap that you see on just the social posts. It happens to tribalism and whatever. Sod all that. Anyway, let's talk. Let's get straight into it. Willow Nightingale was first against Statlander. It ran around near enough the 15-minute mark. So it was a good way to open up the pre-show. Gary Joe, Willow picking up the victory on this one. Where does this leave Statlander? Because she had the title. She lost it, and she's now going on this really bad losing run. Where do you see Chris Statlander shaping up in 2024?
To be honest with you, Adam, I'm glad this is a question because I was actually talking to my friend Vicky about it. Because anybody that knows me, I love Statlander to the fullest. I want her to be, in that position where she can be more than a woman, right? So, I don't know. I hope the answer is not putting her into ROH with Stokely Hathaway. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just I don't want her to see going from a great comeback story, to me, one of my favorite comebacks of the year, and then plumbing her down there. Because not a lot of people watch ROH because they have to subscribe to the Honor Club app. And with that being said, I don't think this is going to hurt Stat. I think what they're building here, I think one of them is going to turn on each other. I think that's the story being told here. You want Willow to look strong going into 2024. Yes, that looks a little hit or miss since losing that title. But man, I'm just like you. I'm curious to see what they do with her. I hope they don't drop the ball because, man, it's just she has all the potential in the world. And I'm not saying Willow don't. But the match itself, I thought was really good. Really, really good. I like the fact that they got the hometown opening. That's cool, because they're both from Long Island. So kudos to whoever booked that. Yeah, I mean, we can always say Stat looks strong by defeat because how amazing she was in that match. But yeah, I just get the feeling that there's a story being told here, and that's one of them turning. And I think that's still going to be Willow Nightingale joining forces with Sky Blue and Julia Hart.
Yeah,
Okay.
we spoke about that, didn't we, Dave, on the show? Dave, from your point with Willow Nightingale, we've seen her do a lot of good things this year. The match itself, as Gary just said, was perfectly good to start off the show. But Dave, where do you see Willow? I mean, do you kind of agree with Gary Joe? Is she going to align herself with either Julia or even Stokely Hathaway, maybe?
I do agree that there's going to be a turn, but I think Stat's going to be the one that turns. I think Willow is such an organic over baby face. I just can't see her garnering boos. Where Statlander, I think a change in her demeanor, and maybe I'm not sure if Stokely becomes a manager, but there's obviously something going on there. I know he's involved with Ring of Honor, and it could go in a different direction, and it could be more of a creative thing, but. I wouldn't be overly surprised if Chris Statlander turns heel and we see a different Chris Statlander in 2024. I can't see Willow turning, but obviously you have got the intrigue and the mystery because she got the mist, and we saw what's happened with Sky Blue since. So that's something they could possibly revisit. So I think she'll be okay. To echo Gary's point, two girls going out there from Long Island, I thought it was the perfect way to start the show. There was a lot of matches and probably a couple more matches than I would have liked to have seen on the card overall. It was like a 5.5 hour, a bit of a slog. I mean, there's great action, a lot of great competitors. And if I was in that crowd, I'd be quite happy going home, definitely getting my money's worth. But to watch it at home, 5.5 hours is kind of a long time to watch anything. But I thought they really started off well, and it was just a shame there wasn't a few more people there. People were still filtering into the arena, but I think they really put on a good match.
Yeah, they certainly did. And as you said, there's only so many times you can boil a kettle during
Yeah.
5.5 hours of a show. I know I struggled myself, to be honest. We were up at near enough the same time watching it this morning.
Yeah, it was a 4 a.m. get up for me. So I was like, I did the pre-show, and I felt like I'd watched a good chunk of wrestling, and I hadn't even started the main show.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't want to complain too. I love AEW, and I love seeing obviously I think the wider point is that the success of the tournament, the C2 has been fantastic. One of the best things that I've seen in wrestling, particularly this year. But unfortunately has kind of restricted certain storyline developments because these guys have been involved with the tournament. So it's very hard to build towards separate matches, if they weren't going to be in the tournament final. And obviously only two guys could be in that. So it has hampered that to a degree, not, drastically, but that's probably why we've had a few extra matches added late on rather than built to them over the course of weeks and months.
Yeah, exactly that. We won't talk too much about the next one, which is the Battle Royal, because it kind of plays into something a bit later on. And I called it, Dave, didn't I, on the show?
You did.
I did call it. Kill Switch wins. Kill Switch or Luchasaurus, depending on what way you want to do it. Won the Battle Royal, eliminated Trent last. Dave, again, without going too much into it, what was your overall thoughts of that particular match? They're always very difficult. I always think these are very difficult to review, these matches, because they are sort of all over the place. You got to keep your eyes peeled and everywhere, even when you're in the crowd and you've got a Battle Royal going on. Your eyes are kind of all over the place. But what did you make of Killswitch winning the Battle Royal?
Yeah, it is difficult because of the style of it as well. Everyone's starting in the match, and there's people that have to be eliminated early. And I was quite disappointed that Dalton Castle was one of them because I really like Dalton Castle. So I was a bit disappointed when he went so soon. In saying that, the match is probably going to go 15 minutes maximum, and you can't you've got to have eliminations. I always find it, I don't know, a little bit sad for the guys that get thrown over the top rope in the early stages. I liked the kind of final few. I liked that we saw Lance Archer. I thought he looked pretty dominant in it once he eventually got in the ring, because obviously they ambushed him early on. And Trent, I believe he's from Long Island as well, or he's from New York. So again, another hometown, wrestler that gets his moment, and he's in the final two of the Battle Royal. So I didn't hate it, but as you say, it served a bigger purpose. And Killswitch picking up the win played into something that we saw later on in the card.
Exactly. Gary Joe, do you echo that comment? It's always battle royals, even when you're watching it, or even if you're live watching a battle royal or a Royal Rumble, they are so difficult to focus your head because you're going to have someone over there, someone's getting thrown out over there. You got to be all over the place. But they did do a good job in the wrestlers that they had in there, and obviously with Killswitch winning it, and we'll get to that point a bit later on. But overall, it was a fun little. I wouldn't even say opener because it was a second match on the pre-show, but it was a fun way for the pre-show crowd to start filtering in to see.
Yeah, I thought, I mean, to answer your question there, Adam, yeah, I mean, that's the one thing about battle royals. I mean, I wish there would be, you know, like I've noticed one thing with AEW's new production thing with their camera where it's showing the whole view of the ring. I wish that would have kept going throughout the match because I don't know about anybody else, but like the zoomies for, you know, the battle royals or whatever, you know, like even the Rumble that includes that. Like it's just too much for me sometimes. Yeah, I'm just like Dave. I love Dalton Castle. Why did you have him eliminated first? No, actually, it was the second one. I think first was Serpentico or whatever.
Yeah.
Only thing that I will say, like easily, this was my least interested match. Um, you know, for the pre-show. I mean, I was kind of excited for it because I want to know, like, interesting. They didn't announce anybody, so I thought we were going to see some originals. Some we did, some we didn't. I just I'm not afraid to admit it. I hate who the winner was. Kill Switch, whatever you want to call him, is becoming a dud. He really is. He's turning into a baby raptor. Like you're just there. Unless that's Nick Wayne, but that's a whole different story. Um,
Yeah, I've got a
yeah,
point on that as well
I,
when we get to it about the overall
I was going to
outcome.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I'm gonna change my perspective when we get on the match with Copeland and Christian, but because I can't wait to give my opinion on that. But overall, like I said, it was okay. You know, it's funny because when I was talking to some friends, I was like, you know what? I don't know if he's in the match, but I would love to see Danhausen win it just because it's Danhausen. He's the most over, and he was, in fact, the most over. Sure, people could look at him as comedy relief, ha ha, but um, just when he's in the ring, man, he can really shine to good levels. I mean, he was really good on ROH, so as a singles competitor.
To
But
your
with that being
point,
said,
it would have been a new challenger, wouldn't it, to the TNT title? Not somebody that we've already seen with a
right,
TNT title
exactly,
reign. Yeah,
exactly. You know, I'm just bored of seeing the same people.
yeah.
So, and I'm not afraid to admit that as a big loyalist, I'm a big fan of this company. Um, that is one thing that they can work on going into 2024. Make some new people up in front, and everything would be good. Before we go to the next match, guys, I just want to say one thing to bring up because it happened during this pre-show. I love the fact that TK is making the emphasis on the women's division so much better. How about that Serena Deeb video package?
I had that.
Right after from the Willow Nightingale Statlander match. Let's start off with Adam. Like, what are your thoughts on it, man? Like, did you like that video package? What do you hope for with Serena Deeb going into 2024?
I loved it. And it was we were talking about it on the
Yeah.
Dynamite news show this week about Serena Deeb and how she's one of the best women's wrestlers probably that's on the planet, really, if you give her the opportunity. So to have that, the promo was great. I really enjoyed it. I can't wait for her to come back. And interestingly enough, I've just been reading a little bit of the socials. Seems as if Mercedes Moné is now coming back to AEW. The talks of WWE have officially broken down over Monet or money, depending on the way you. We'll talk about that later on with Monet. But Dave, just to echo sort of Gary Joe's point there, so great to see Serena Deeb. Obviously, after I think it was convulsions or fits that she was having unprovoked.
Yeah.
It's so great to see her back, and the promo really sets the stage for her return to AEW.
Absolutely, absolutely, because she's a different type of competitor. They've got so many talented women in that division, and I think the return of Serena, I think the return of Thunder Rosa, your characters like your Toni Storm, your Julia Hart, your Willows, there's been so much good I mean, but they haven't, at times, they just haven't pulled it all together. But I think they've really started to towards the end of the year. There was three women's matches as well over the course of the card, including the pre-show, which is an improvement. That's one of the criticisms that AEW have had. That the split hasn't been a little bit fairer, and the women haven't got as much time. I think that they're starting to get it now, and yeah, I think it's a concerted effort by Tony Khan to really improve the product. He's listened to the fans, he's listened to the criticism, and he started to do something about it. But I can't wait to see Serena back.
Yep. Do you echo that, Gary Joe? You looking forward to the return of Serena Deeb?
Absolutely. Deeb is one of those strong assets that you need to have around. I really, really believe that. I'm glad that she told everybody what was going on, why she was gone for so long, because she was battling with seizures. So good to see, her recover from that, and her story is going to be told, and I'm very excited for it. And I love the direction that Tony is going with these women. Finally, it took a long time, but I look at it this way. And when I say emphasis, the last couple scrums that he's put over the women so much, and he's finally listening. Whoever is back there, he's listening. Yeah. For the month of December, fun fact, the women has been featured 46.2%, so slightly below the men in terms of TV time. That's huge. That is their biggest jump ever. And I don't know if you guys caught it, but on Dynamite they had 11 women on there between segments and matches. Like that's good. And I'm so. I think the last time I was on here, I think we were all in agreement that they need to focus on this women's division. It started to irk my nerves, and maybe they heard Turning the Buckle podcast, because it's it's definitely working.
Well, it's good to see the women are going to get their more television time, or even a promo time, or the matches make sense, which is another good thing. And they did throughout the whole of this show.
The characters have got better, the stories have got better, the match quality was always there in terms of the in-ring ability. That was never in question. It was just giving them similar opportunities and similar stories to the men, and they've definitely started to do that a lot more.
Yeah, certainly have, and I'm looking forward to seeing what 2024 holds for the women's division in AEW, and AEW in general, to be fair. But last match on the pre-show was Hook defeating Wheeler Yuta. I don't think there was many surprises that Hook wasn't going to win this under FTW rules. He defended the FTW title. Gary Joe, 2024 for Hook, do we need to start seeing him in... this match went sort of 10 or so minutes, and a lot of Hook's matches prior to that have been like his dad when Taz was in ECW. A lot of them were quite quick, chokehold done. Do we need to start seeing Hook more prominently in longer matches, or do you think because of his age, where he's so young, the slower, more modified or particular build-up would work with him?
It's a good question, Adam. I'm going to say maybe this was a building up a mode for Hook. I do agree with you. I think he needs some lengthy matches. It's against some of the good ones in AEW. Even if that's, I don't know, hypothetically speaking here, like a Sammy Guevara or somebody that's well experienced, and I want to see Hook in a good position more than these short matches, the FTW matches and stuff like that. Hook does have all the potential in the world for sure. I'm not just saying that because he's the son of a Hall of Famer. Well, he's going to be a Hall of Famer someday. No doubt about it. But anyway, I totally agree with you. He needs something different, and that different certainly could be, not just the length of matches, but something different that we've never seen with him before. So that's my biggest hope for Hook. The match, unfortunately, I wasn't really feeling it. I mean, it was fun to a point. I'm kind of curious about something too with the foghorn that went off in the arena when Yuta was talking. I don't know. For some reason, he looked legitimately pissed. Maybe that was just planned by design. Oh, geez, sorry about that. That was either planned by design. I don't know. But yeah, I'm with you guys. I mean, I want to see something different.
Yeah, definitely. Dave, going back to Wheeler Yuta, he was always, I think the big issue with it now is we like, I mean, Yuta in the ring, you can't really sort of, discredit anything he's wrestling. He's great. He does a great match. But does it come to a point, Dave, and also give your thoughts on the match, that he's got to stop losing? Because we said this, we was going to talk about Swerve and Keith Lee, although that match didn't happen. We'll get to that. But how momentum can play this if he keeps taking defeats, that credibility of then all of a sudden him going for a TNT title, and we're just not going to look at it as a viable competitor.
Yeah, I think the FTW rules gave him an out in terms of he's the pure champion and he's been having these pure matches. So for him to lose an FTW style match wasn't the end of the world. And there will ultimately be a return match under pure rules between him and Hook, which I'm sure he'll pick up his win. In terms of Hook, really, really enjoy what they've done with him so far. But that early momentum, it kind of stalled a little bit. And then we go quite long periods without seeing much of him. So I just think we need to see more of him more consistently. And even if that is having more FTW rules matches, because I know he's the FTW champion, but I haven't seen him have many of those. I know he's had a street fight, or it was a tag team street fight he had. So maybe, incorporating his throws and his suplexes with weapons, with tables, similar to what Taz used to do in ECW, that could be something that could get us on our screens more often and just give him more of a run. So it's either double down on the FTW, or as Gary said, give him something different and let's see a different side to his character or in a different environment. But yeah, I did enjoy this match, to be honest. But the victory for Hook was never in doubt.
No, definitely not. We'll see what happens though with both of them. We keep saying see what happens in 2024 because we are so close to 2024. In England, we're now 6.5 hours away from that clock striking midnight, and yeah, so we'll see what happens. But the World's End kicked off with the 8-man tag, the 8 men that were left from the C2, as it's been called, one of the, I think is the best tournament I've ever seen. I've not seen a G1, so I can't comment on the G1. But this has been one of the best tournaments I've ever seen. Daddy Magic, get my words out, on comms on this, which is always great to hear him on comms. And he got a great pop from the crowd as well. Dave, we'll start with you on this one. There was lots of tags on this. There was a big German from Claudio. The finish was everyone kind of hitting their finishes, and Garcia, the counters, the lethal injection with the sort of roll-up style victory. Where do you see this now going forward, though? I mean, Garcia, he was on the face team, which was a bit, unusual. He did dance eventually. You need to do that dance when I see you in February. I want you doing the Daniel Garcia dance to Ignite. But what do you see? What did you make of this? And where do you see these guys happening in 2024? Because there is only we say AEW's got a lot of titles, but you look at most of these guys in this ring, in this match, and they all could theoretically challenge for any title in AEW.
Yeah, I'm going to try and stay positive because both of the 8-man matches, for me, I didn't necessarily want on the card just because I was I was looking forward to the matches that we built to, and these, as we mentioned earlier, were kind of put in last minute. In saying that, I think it was really good for Daniel Garcia. I think the story that they've told of him and the sports entertainer and the wrestler, and he had the opportunity to join the BCC and he didn't. And now he's kind of seemingly learnt the lesson that sometimes it's not a case of just being an entertainer or a wrestler. Sometimes the best entertainers are the best wrestlers. And I think they can revisit the stuff with Danielson. I think the interruption to his entrance was very deliberate. And you saw a bit of the friction between when he tagged himself in, for example. So really, the takeaway from this match and my hopes for this match is more of Daniel Garcia in a prominent position, moving him up the card, and some series of matches again with Danielson. I think that would be absolutely great. I know he's previously picked up a win over Danielson, but I want that revisited, and I think they'll have some great matches, given the character development, given the story that Daniel Garcia, the Jericho Appreciation Society, the ridiculous outfits, and the dancing, obviously incredibly over, pulling it all together now and becoming one of AEW's top guys.
Yeah, definitely. Gary Joe, we seem to be talking about there's so many guys here in AEW. And me and Dave had this conversation on Friday when we were doing the Dynamite review. The talent is so sort of stacked at the mid-card main event level. And then you look at guys like Garcias and the Utas and even the Guns and people like that. We haven't seen the Guns in a while, obviously due to Juice's injury and Jay being involved in this. Obviously, what did you think of the actual match itself? And also the picture of AEW's top level talent next year, not including potentially guys that are going to come in, and we'll have a chat about that later. They're in such a strong position with that top tier talent as well, aren't they?
Yeah, I always credit Tony Khan where it's due with his young talent. The young talent evolving around him is really the sky is the limit. Because when you see somebody like Daniel Garcia, when you see him in the same ring and getting acknowledged with the little snippets during the match, before the match, with, like Dave said, the entrance interference from Danielson, I think that's going to lead Garcia into the BCC. I was very fortunate, very lucky to be there when Wheeler Yuta got recruited into the BCC with Moxley and Regal. Like, that was a treat for me as a fan. So I'm very, very excited to see what's next for Daniel Garcia. Not just him, and we're talking about young talent who is on the show as well. Well, he wants a match against Orange Cassidy on Wednesday. That's Dante Martin. Yep. Dante has a lot of potential too. I get it. Injuries happen. He had a gruesome injury. I did not expect him to return this quickly. But man, that kid is something special too. Very special. And Garcia is definitely that special element, not only to himself, but definitely the BCC. I don't know if anybody has seen him in PWG or even on the indie scene. Garcia is a machine. If not one of the best, fastest rising young talents that we could see for the future. So, I mean, he's going to be in good hands with Danielson, so hopefully they go that route. For the match, though, I do like, Adam, you brought up everybody got their finishers at the end. I thought it was cool. I love seeing that, no matter what the promotion is. It's so cool to see, because, you're going to think, oh, well, he needs to get this one in. He needs to get this one in. Oh, who's actually going to get the pinfall? There was many times where I really thought somebody from, each team was going to, whoever was going to pick up that loss. But I'm glad Danielson won it for them. And again, kudos to TK for putting over his future talent. One last thing I will say, I think, Dave, you need to change your name to Daddy Magic. I'm just saying. Maybe Ace will actually like that.
Yeah. Oh man, I've had too many gimmicks this year and too many names. I've settled on the problem child. But yeah. Going back to the match, Gary, what I loved as well, and you saying that about all the different finishes and that, I loved Mark Briscoe's part in it. The elbow he does off the Cactus Jack style elbow he does off the apron. And he kind of bridged the gap as well between Garcia and the BCC because there was a bit of uneasiness. And you saw them sort of celebrating at the end. And I really, again, going back to let's see what happens in 2024. But I think Mark Briscoe, given what he's done in the tournament and again with the match last night, I think we'll be seeing a lot more of him consistently on AEW television. And he's earned his right now as a single star on that roster. And he always has a good match. He's always involved in good matches. So I really did like the fact that Mark Briscoe has really shown the wider audience, the wider wrestling fans that perhaps didn't watch too much Ring of Honor, exactly what he can do and just how of a phenomenal talent he is.
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. You're right. You're right. More Mark Briscoe in 2024, please, TK. I'm sure you will. The next match itself, well, the next match was kind of written now of how it wasn't necessarily who was going to win, but it was how it was going to happen, which was Miro and Andrade. Now, for those of you that don't know, it came out before the pay-per-view that Andrade's contract is literally up today, I believe. That's what I think Tony Khan said that in the scrum after the show. And he looks as though he's heading back to the WWE where he was criminally misused before. So I don't quite know where he fits in on that. I'll discuss that on the Raw review this week, maybe with myself or with Dave, depending on if Dave watches it in time. We will discuss that briefly. The match itself, Gary Joe, was really just how are they going to finish the story with Andrade and CK Perry and obviously get the Miro the victory. But Miro's another one, Gary Joe, that I feel that we need to see more of him. He needs a solid feud because he's great. His potential's great. He's great in the ring. He's got a great gimmick, but we don't see enough of him.
I very, very, very much agree. I think he is, I mean, he's actually on my year-end awards for underutilized of the year, and he certainly is. You know, I'm hoping a better year for him next year. You know, this guy is doing handouts for, matches for a title. You know, I want to see him as the international title. Put Miro, put that title on Miro going into Allin. You know, maybe him and Pac would be a cool thing for you guys, right there in the UK. So, yeah, I very much agree with that, 110%. And when Miro's lost the TNT title, he really hasn't done much since. I get it. He denied some creative pitches, kind of his fault, kind of not, because, you know, he wanted to know his worth. He knows his worth. But that said, though, going in the match, unfortunately, I wasn't that excited for it. And I only say that because it was predictable because Andrade is on his way out. Good match. I'm just glad it wasn't your typical, 2-3 minute match, you're done. Okay, enjoy going over there. No. So kudos to TK with the booking with this. Where does this go with, CJ Perry and Miro, though? Technically, she's still not signing, alongside, there we go, alongside with her real life husband. So that's interesting too. But again, it's creating the story of what the hell's going on, CJ, come back to me, so but yeah, it was a fun match for what it was worth.
Yeah, definitely. So Dave, obviously Andrade leaving AEW. Anyway, with regards to that, where do we see Miro, Dave, in your eyes in 2024? And what is your thoughts on Andrade going to, well, by the sounds of it, came back to WWE?
Yeah, so once this story broke that Andrade was possibly finishing up with AEW, I think it did cast a bit of a cloud over not just the match, but the pay-per-view, unfortunately, because Andrade, incredibly talented wrestler, big fan of his work in the ring. When I started looking into it and reading a little bit more and found out that he was kind of refusing creative pitches as well from not just Tony Khan, but everybody else involved in the process. You kind of think, and unfortunately, there's some of the ex-WWE guys that there's been issues with. When you've got the young talents, the Hooks, the Wheeler Yutahs, the Daniel Garcias, the people that we want to see more of, it's really difficult, or I kind of lose a little bit of sympathy, I suppose. And I start to think, well, if the negativity, if they're going to bring negativity to the promotion, then it might be better off if they left. And whether Andrade goes back to the WWE or whether he goes to Mexico, because I think Charlotte Flair's out for long term, isn't she?
Yeah.
So I don't think he'd be going over there to work side by side with Charlotte, but maybe they would see more of each other and that plays into it. I don't know. But it's not as a disappointing. If you'd have told me a few weeks ago that Andrade would be leaving, I would have been quite disappointed because we're having a great run in the tournament and putting on some great matches. But when you see the likes of people we've already spoke about, Mark Briscoe, when you talk about Jay White, Juice Robinson, the Guns, they've got so many guys there that I would really like to see in prominent positions. then it might be for the best. In terms of Miro, similar. I hope he gets an opportunity to really buckle down. We see more of him. He can put in a feud with, that with Orange Cassidy, Gary. That would be great. I'd love to see a story there, not just like a one match and forget about it. Like let's do some interesting things. Let's factor in best friends, and let's revisit that. I know there was a story in the past, wasn't there, with Miro and Sabian against best friends, but there's definitely more that can be done there. I'm a Miro fan, but it always seems like it's the same guys we're talking about, and I don't know. I think there's Dante Martin, Action Andretti, Darius, your Pentas, your Ray Phoenix, the guys that never seem to cause any issues, that just go out there and have fantastic matches. I'd be quite happy to see more of them, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you on that. We move on to the first women's match of the evening. Timeless time. Gary, please tell me if you had the best gimmick on your top year end that she won it. If you did have that, did you have that as an award? He may be a statue in a minute, so we'll come back to that. Dave, timeless Toni Storm, Riho. Toni Storm started working the back straight away. Luther did get ejected from ringside. Finish of this slightly awkward finisher from Toni Storm. Not quite sure what happened there. She did pick up the victory and retain the title. But was it just a bit disappointing? Could it have been better for you, that match?
Yeah, it was okay. I think it was like a hip toss DDT, and it was probably something they practiced 15, 20 times and nailed it perfectly. And then the actual one that mattered it just didn't quite look right.
Yeah.
Spot I enjoyed in the match was when Riho splashed Luther and Luther handed her over to Toni Storm.
Yeah.
I thought that was great. And as you said, and you said to Gary Joe about the character, I think she's brilliant. I thought the ring attire was great. I think the overall presentation was really good. I didn't mind Mariah May coming out at the end as well with the petals and sharing her with that. I thought that was obviously they're going to work a story there with Mariah May and Toni Storm down the line. So yeah, I enjoyed that, but the match, a little bit clunky in places.
Yeah, it did feel that way. Mariah May's making her All Elite Wrestling debut on Wednesday, an opponent to be confirmed. Are you looking forward to that? Is that something that you're looking forward to seeing how she goes? Because she's got a big reputation.
Yeah, I've not seen her wrestle. I've heard stuff about her. She was in Stardom, where Toni Storm was previously in Japan. So it'll be the first time I've seen a Mariah May match. So yeah, I'm intrigued. Did they announce the opponent yet?
No.
No. Okay, so we'll find out on Dynamite. But yeah, I think again, like we were talking about earlier, the women's division really strong, and it looks like from what Tony said in the scrum, he'll be looking at more potential signings in the women's division over the next few months.
I have one name that he could get now for that division. She was the former NWA Women's Champion. She had a Roman Reigns style reign.
Camille, was it?
Camille.
Yeah.
She would be my pick. Obviously Mercedes if she's free. But yeah, Camille is my pick.
Mercedes, again, it goes back to my point about the ex-WWE, and it's not just a WWE thing. You've looked at Danielson come in, and he's the perfect professional, perfect wrestler. He's an incredible asset and great for AEW. Same as Copeland, same as Christian. So it's not necessarily, coming out from WWE thinking that they're bigger stars than they are. But it does make me a little bit nervous when you hear some of the negativity and the stories about Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné, and her demands. And I don't think they necessarily need that drama when they've got your Willow Nightingales, your Chris Statlanders, your Sky Blues, your Julia Harts, your Serena Deebs coming back in, your Thunder Roses, your Britt Bakers possibly coming back as well.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be absolutely against it because Monet is money. She brings in a big audience. She brings in a lot of eyes to the product, which I want AEW to be as successful as possible. I don't want it to be a mini version of WWE. I like the difference, the different products we get, The difference is we did two different companies with two different fan bases, and what will work for one won't necessarily work for the other. But yeah, I think the main thing is that she comes in and she's an asset to the company. And yeah, you can't have like the creative control, or if that is, I mean, I don't fully know the reasons why the talks have broken down with WWE, but if there was a list of demands there, I wouldn't want Tony Khan and AEW to just say, yeah, that's fine, you can have everything you want, and then lead to problems down the track.
Sure, I agree with that, Dave, actually, to be honest. Gary Joe, welcome back. I know you sort of went off briefly. I did ask the question.
Yeah.
It was like, in your year-end rewards thing, was there a award for best gimmick? Because if Toni Storm didn't win it, we'd be having words. But other than that, what did you make of that particular match? And Tony Khan mentioned the free agency of the women. I've said the word Camille, come out from NWA. He could get her now, pretty much. And we've obviously mentioned Mercedes Moné. What did you make of that match? And also the free agency of the women's side of things? Who would you like to see pop up in AEW?
Oh, what was that again? I'm sorry, like the beginning of that, I didn't get that.
The beginning was obviously about the match itself between Toni Storm and Riho, and who would you like to see in the free agency come in? Because Tony Khan did mention during the scrum that he's looking in the women's free agency pool.
Couple great questions here. The match itself, though, I thought it was okay for what it was. I think, Riho, she can really hold her own. I think she's a very gifted talent, regardless of what people think of her size, and stuff like that. Sure, it was no brainer that Toni Storm was going to win. Man, you can't make her lose either. Like, she's just phenomenal all around. Like, Storm is just simply amazing. I did have quite a few people message me during the pay-per-view in my HD inbox saying, well, what's next for Storm? What do you think? I think it's no-brainer. Somebody's going to come back here in the next few weeks. It's been said for a while now, and that's Jamie Hayter. So I think Jamie's going to be next in line for that title. I'm thinking Revolution. They will go at it for the title. The long story build with those two would be great. They used to be in NXT UK together. Yeah. So how fun would that be, reliving that history? I loved NXT UK. But yeah, so as for, the next possible signing, which, yeah, you guys are right. TK, again, came out last night on the scrum, actively going to be searching. I do love the thought of Camille. She can maybe fit that void that, she kind of gives me the vibes of Jade Cargill a little bit, being built like a machine, tall like a machine. She has all the potential in the world. Camille is amazing. As for Mercedes Moné, I'm going to flat out and say it. I don't know if that's a smart move or a good move. I think maybe it's a good move because you have some really big eyeballs on that women's division for sure. It could be a very, I don't know, I don't want to say a bad move because that sounds very negative, but
yeah,
I'm just being real here. I'm just being real about it. And I mean, I'm like Dave, the stories that I've heard about her too. I mean, I get it. It's on the internet. We don't know the truth to it all, but it sounds like she's just in that position where she wants the world to be all about her. No pun intended. It just, I don't think I would want that in a backstage, because if Miro and Andrade was turning down creative pitches, you're telling me that Mercedes probably won't do the same thing. I know that this is a hot thing to say, a very, very hot opinion, very hot take, but she kind of gives me CM Punk vibes. I'm not going to lie. As a big fan of wrestling, I'm not afraid to admit that. When, what I mean is when CM Punk came in, he wanted all about him. I don't want that to be the same way with Mercedes. And if it's, I get it, you're a wrestler, you know your worth, you want all the money in the world, but are you really worth all that money in the world? It all depends. but maybe she's changed. I'm hoping that she has. But the one that I would love to see, I know this one has already steered away from Toni. I hope the rumor is not true about one talent, which is Julia. Not Julia, sorry, Gulia from New Japan.
Yeah.
Like, she is one of the best talented women wrestlers in the world right now. That's who I hope for. But I do love the Camille thought of that too. Because I'm trying to think of who other free agents for women that we have coming up. Because I feel like us wrestling fans focus more on the men free agency side of thing more than the women. So that's.
Well, I'll give you another one. Becky Lynch's contract's due on this year.
I don't see Becky leaving.
I
really don't. No way. I would be shocked, but then again, AEW and WWE right now is really catching us by these big surprises. Like, I never imagined CM Punk going back to WWE. I never imagined Adam Copeland coming to AEW. This is what's the great thing about wrestling, fellas, and everybody that's watching. It's, man, wrestling 2024. This is why I always say to wrestling fans, the fact that you want AEW off air, like, do you really want them off air? Like, do you want wrestling to be boring again? I don't want that. I want not just, I mean, we got the revamp of TNA here starting tomorrow. This is exciting times. And so, I mean, I know I feel like I keep rambling, fellas, but
I'm really obviously a huge AEW fan, looking forward to see what happens as we're discussing. But, Raw, day one, I'm thinking I'm going to check that out this week. As you say, Gary, TNA rebranding again. Who knows what we're going to see over there?
Acquisition coming up at Hard to Kill as well. They got a big name. Don't know who it is, but
I will say Okada, by the way, fellas. I'm going to say Okada, even though he is already going to be at that show. But I got that feeling it's going to be Okada. I don't know.
It's going to be good though. Former champion's going to return on Raw, like you mentioned, as well.
We got Will Ospreay to look forward to as in a full-time fixture in AEW. There's rumors of Zack as well, Sabre Jr. coming in as on a more consistent basis. So much to look forward to going into next year. And you're absolutely right, Gary. Like, the competition, even if WWE didn't see it as competition, the fact that there's an alternative, it's a viable alternative. It's somewhere for fans to, I'm sure there's wrestling fans that cycle between the two as well, that some watch everything, some watch just WWE, some watch just AEW, and that will change. And, MJF talked about it as well in his article, I think it's the Players Tribune, about the amount of jobs that wouldn't exist if it wasn't for companies like AEW. So it's a good thing for everyone, particularly wrestling fans.
Exactly that. The next match itself is very difficult because it wasn't meant to be the match that it was meant to be. Swerve and Keith Lee. Keith Lee's come out last night and said about the injury, tweeted about it, or put on X about he's had this injury since last year. It hasn't healed properly. There wasn't know if it was going to happen. Turns out it didn't happen, and the match didn't happen, and Swerve went against Dustin Rhodes. Swerve did obviously come out on top. There was no surprise that Swerve wasn't going to win this. And as I said to Dave off air briefly, I'm kind of glad that it didn't happen with Keith Lee. I always felt that match was a lose-lose. If Swerve had lost it, his momentum has gone. If Keith Lee has lost it, then that was really it for me, for Keith Lee and AEW. I couldn't see him doing any more. Dave, with this match in particular, it was obviously a foregone conclusion. Dustin Rhodes looked great, as he always does. He's another Hall of Famer, by the way, waiting to happen, Dustin. But what's going to happen with Keith Lee now, Dave?
I'm not sure. Safe pair of hands, and obviously Dustin Rhodes has been a recent tag team partner of Keith Lee, naturally limitless. So it was a swap that made sense given the circumstances.
Yeah.
In saying that, I wish they would have just left this alone after Swerve put his ankle through the cinder block.
Yeah.
I think that had served the purpose. I think the the paying crowd and pay-per-view buyers got to see Swerve Strickland. Yes, it wasn't in a match at that point, but I think that would have done the job. I don't think they necessarily had to carry on with that and Swerve to pick up the win and Dustin say that, he's got to compete. I don't think that was strictly necessary. In terms of Keith Lee, I think you're right. It got them out of a potential hole because I could not see Swerve losing that match. Swerve was always going to come out of this segment, whoever it was with, looking great because they'd be mad to do anything different. But it did leave a little bit of concern about where you go with Keith Lee should he lose. We did kind of fantasy book and speculate maybe he could align himself with the Mogul Embassy and we'd see a different side to Keith Lee moving forward. So it remains to be seen whether anything like that will materialize. First and foremost, if Keith Lee's healthy, I wish him all the best in his recovery. If it is an injury or a health issue, I don't want to speculate. I just, more than anything else, wrestling aside, creative stories or ideas aside, I just hope that he's okay.
Yeah, definitely that. Going Joe, Swerve Strickland's another one, and we've said about these names in 2024 that are going for titles. The match itself was a throwaway, really match, to be honest, and you probably agree with that. But Swerve Strickland in 2024, are we going to be heading into, say, World's End this time next year, and Swerve walks out the AEW Heavyweight Champion?
Well, I will say, regarding the match, yeah, I do agree with Dave 110%. Yeah. Center block spot, okay, that's still making Swerve one of the best heels going into 2024. I mean, he's had an amazing, like, I felt like no pun intended here, but he went all in with the match with Darby and Sting, and then guess what? After that, he was like, okay, now this is my house. Yeah, Saraya, someone housed the house. Okay, holding the house down, I guess. I don't know where that was going, but whatever. My cheesy puns are here every day. Yeah, I will say, like, I do like the words from Dave there with Keith Lee. I've loved Keith Lee since his NXT days. Yeah. I wish him the best too. I really do. I said something when I shared the tweet from Keith Lee yesterday, and I said in my comments that this is where wrestling fans need to stop assuming and speculate this and that, because last time we thought that, and a very unfortunate passing of Wyndham Rotunda happened. So I'm not saying that's gonna go into that field of Keith Lee. It's just I worry about the guy's health. It's scary. But for Swerve going into 2024, I think it's no brainer. He said it again last night. He keeps teasing about getting that world title. He wants to be the first African American to hold, the world title in AEW, and I mean he's perhaps more over than Samoa Joe at this point. So I think it's safe to say I think that's going to be the next feud for Joe. I know I went a little far ahead, my bad. But yeah, I mean, Swerve, he is just so damn popular right now. And he kind of reminds me of LA Knight, like strike the iron when it's hot. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden the momentum is in his favor. So this is great for Swerve. And I can't wait for one match in particular, and we're going to get it. Not just saying this because, Adam is wearing some great colors. We're going to see eventually Swerve and Will Ospreay. If that match does not happen, maybe for a title, maybe at All In next year, what are we doing? I'm just saying. Yeah. So I'm very, very excited for Swerve going into 2024. I really am.
Yeah, he wants to be the first African-American champion in AEW World Champion. He definitely will be. I think within the next 6 to 8 months, I think that title will be around Swerve's waist. I don't know if he necessarily takes from Joe. Obviously, depends on what direction they go in. He's a heel, and he's a great heel, but he's getting some great reactions as well. The fans love him. So he could organically become a face over the course of the next few months. But regardless of whether he beats Joe for the title or not, he's gonna be AEW World Champion at some point in 2024.
He will be, definitely. From the sublime of Swerve to probably the ridiculous now. Right. Before we mention this 8-man tag, this is obviously shrouded in more controversy, which AEW just doesn't need right now. The controversy now surrounds Kaylee Ray, I think her name was. Basically amazing. It's Chris Jericho has sexually assaulted her, forced her to leave the company. We don't know, so we're not going to speculate. Tony Khan did sort of say on the scrum that it was, if there is anything like that going on, it'll go to the disciplinary committee and it will do that. So we'll leave that bit there for now. But this match, Dave, said to you before we went on air, this was bad. It was
the whole situation and the dynamics of it as well, the crowd reaction to Jericho.
Yeah,
it threw everything. So there's some really talented, experienced guys in that match, but it just didn't click. And unfortunately, it was another one of the clouds we mentioned. Andrade leaving, it was another cloud. Unfortunately, going into the pay-per-view that they had to contend with. Unfortunate. It's a shame in some respects, but if there is something to be answered to, I'm sure they'll investigate it. And, as you say, we don't want to speculate because we don't know. It's only Twitter or X and Facebook rumors and Nick Houseman stirring things up a little bit. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. But in terms of the match, probably the one I enjoyed the least. Didn't necessarily want it on the show in the first place. Like I said, I would have much rather with what we know now about and the Jericho situation, perhaps would have been in a similar situation if it would have been a straight tag match. But I would have rather seen Big Bill and Ricky Starks defend the tag titles, whether that was against Jericho and a partner or whether that was just against another team, or even if that match was completely scrapped and we had the FTR House of Black match, which there has been a build towards, which is we're getting a Collision, I know, next Saturday.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why we couldn't get it at the pay-per-view. But yeah, not good, unfortunately. And I don't say that very often about matches, particularly multi-man matches in AEW. They do them so well. And as Gary Joe mentioned earlier, we love particularly the finishing sequence with all the guys hitting the finishers in the first 8-man tag. Yeah. But this one just wasn't on the same level, unfortunately.
It wasn't. And amazingly enough, Gary Joe, Sting looked, apart from him being sponsored by Just for Men on that show, because he definitely put some dye in his hair for that. He looked a mile off it last night. I don't know if, because this match was originally meant to be Jericho and Kenny Omega, the Golden Jets, versus Big Bill and Ricky Starks. And again, we wish Kenny Omega well from his diverticulitis diagnosis, and that isn't going to be something that he's going to be back from anytime soon. So this did feel very much thrown together at the last minute. It kind of happened on Dynamite and then got brought together. But yeah, Gary Joe, Sting on this one, and I keep saying Sting because generally he's a go-to and you can get something good out of him. But he looked a mile off it last night.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on in this match, if I can be honest. And I think this felt like a match that you would see on Rampage. That's how much I just did not like it. And that's not saying Rampage is a bad show or anything.
No.
It's just that, I mean, I thought at first that they should have maybe done. I mean, at first when I saw Darby and Sting come into the aid of Jericho and Sammy Guevara, I thought it was going to maybe lead to a triple threat tag title match.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what they should have done and have Darby and Sting hold the titles. And then what's going to happen? Well, hey, Sting and Darby get their little moment of shine. It's great. Sting gets a title before he retires, and then you see a betrayal of Darby to Sting, and then that will lead to the final match at Revolution. That's how I would have booked that.
It's not a bad idea. I like that. I do like that idea.
I just that would make the most sense. I mean, yeah, I know we did not expect some speculated things going on with Jericho either. Maybe it's because the crowd just did not want him there. That's one thing I will say about AEW Faithfuls is They're very passionate and they're very vocal. And last night really showed.
There's a big internet fan base as well for AEW, so
yeah, they're very hardcore.
That's it. So in hindsight, was that a little bit? Could they have predicted that? Maybe there might be a bit of a backlash. It's difficult then, isn't it? They'd already put one match off, and this was the replacement match, so it was a difficult situation for them to know what to do for the best. But unfortunately,
And I will say, in the situation with what's going on with Jericho and such, I'm going to just say this respectfully for everything that people want to believe. This just started from a random fan on Twitter. So I guess whoever starts something on Twitter must be true, right? Because it's on the internet. And yeah, maybe it is true. If Jericho did, very disturbing on his part. Hopefully, it gets figured out. Or I don't know. Like wrestling, like the politics side of thing, is it really, really true? Or is it really, really accurate? Nothing against Nick Hausman. I appreciate all of his work. I think he does a really good job over there. It's just some of his reporting is really inaccurate most of the time. But I don't know. I don't work back there, so I really don't know. What's her name again? Kylie Rae.
Kylie Rae, yeah, she did actually reply to a message about it with a love heart. So I don't. Again,
I don't know either, man. I mean, she didn't really come out and say anything. But I think it's weird. 5 years later,
yeah,
5 years later, I hate to put this into perspective in this little, topic, but it kind of feels like cancel culture all over again. I don't know. It just, like I said, all because of a wrestling Twitter account has to say something.
Yeah.
And then now all of a sudden it's brought up. It's
hard because there's a lot of speculation and sometimes as victims or potential victims, and you just don't know how they wanted the situation to be dealt with, etc. If something were to happen, and now it's all kind of in the public. I do kind of feel sorry for Kaylee Ray, whether she was, because there's a perception now that she was a victim, whether she was or whether she wasn't. So it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one, and it's one of the things about modern day society, unfortunately, that it can be problematic. Yeah, I don't want to think that Jericho did anything wrong, but at the same time, if he did, I don't want to kind of discredit a potential victim or somebody that's gone through something horrible. I want it to be dealt with in the right way. But yeah, it unfortunately, for us as fans of World's End, it did spill over and affect the match quality, which doesn't happen in AEW very often. So just an unfortunate situation all around.
Yeah, it was an unfortunate situation. Jericho and Guevara and Sting and Darby pick up the win. Guevara hit, I think it was a 450 for that to pick up the win on that one. We moved on to the House Rules match. So actually, I didn't actually know this. Julia Hart and Abadon was going to be House Rules until it was announced, and Abadon wanted biting to be legal during this match, which was used very, very well. It was a decent enough match. There was actually really big start from Abadon at the start of this match. I thought it was going to be quite a quick one initially. I didn't want Julia to lose by any stretch of the imagination. She ended up biting Julia on the arm, and I think even on the head at one point. The finish of this was Sky Blue interferes, costing Abadon the match and picking up the victory for Julia Hart. Gary Joe, on this one, Julia Hart's been, again, one of the most improved. The gimmick change to the House of Black absolutely worked. It was perfect for her. What did you make of the match itself? And secondly, Julia Hart next year, is she going to have a long reign as champion, or is this something that's going to end quite quickly, do you feel?
Yeah, let's get all three thoughts in one. So first thing first, the match. Shout out to Abadon. She can really, really handle herself really well in that ring. I'm glad that she's getting utilized a lot more. She just looks so good in that match, and so did Julia, of course. I actually thought this was a very, they meshed really well together. They really did. It felt like it worked. I know it was slow paced, but from what I understand, they've never been in the ring together, like in a match. So it's different. You got to be careful. So, as for Julia transitioning into something so amazing, there's just more than one definition for Julia. How she has been. I love the side of her. You know, I mean, yeah, when I bumped into her outside of Dynamite a few weeks ago, she was a very, very sweet, not so dark Julia Hart, but hey, no. It's just, people give TK flack saying, oh, he doesn't know how to build stars. He doesn't know how to do this. He doesn't know how to do that. Are you sure about that? Look at Julia Hart.
Yeah,
she has
a huge success story.
Oh, she really is, man. And I actually have her on my year-end awards. And when I checked it this morning, she was actually winning a certain category. I think it was like by 13%, I believe. So that's huge. So 2024 for her title reign, to answer that, Adam, yeah, I think they need to keep the title on her for quite a while. But with Britt Baker teasing something on X/Twitter last night, looks like she's coming for Julia. Then again, she posted something with another talent. I don't know what's going on with Baker over on Twitter World, but whatever. Oh man, I love this side of Julia.
Yeah,
easily one of the best in the entire women's division.
Yeah, she was brilliant, and I said once she moved to the House of Black, it's totally worked for her. Dave, yeah, the match itself was pretty good. Dave, Abadon put Abadon. Geez, it's too many Japanese names I struggle with, but this Jesus today. Yeah, she's put a good account of herself on this one as well. We've spoken about that and about how good she's come along this last year. But again, same questions for you, Dave. I mean, Julia Hart's reign, where do you see it going from here?
Yeah, I think it'd be a long reign. I think she just gets better and better. Quick note on this match. I thought the match was good, but I thought the presentation, the entrances were great for both Julia and for Abadon.
Yeah.
I love that she's part, or that they are part of this division, and an integral part in the past few months. It just shows, as again, we keep talking about it, what we were talking about earlier, the strength of the women's division. And I'm sure they'll have a title reign of their own at some point, whether that's a TBS or the women's title. Julia, though, was never in any doubt, I don't think, but and she shouldn't have been. She's doing the best work of her run so far. She's a youngster. I think she's 21 or 22 years old, so she's just going to continue to get better and better. And we haven't scratched the surface, really. You think about some of the matches that she can have, and her involvement with the House of Black, or she's a part of the House of Black, but she's also got her own little House of Heart situation going on with Sky Blue, and we speculated about Willow as well. And there's so much there. She's really, really entertaining character, wrestler, and I think we'll just be seeing more and more of her in 2024, and that belt's going to be around her waist for a while yet.
Yep, I totally agree with that. The more the merrier for Julia Hart. Maybe, as you say, the formation of the House of Heart. Who knows? The "This is Spooky" chant was great as well, by the way.
Yeah,
yeah, that was a nice touch. That's
brilliant.
why I love about AEW crowds. They just come up with something creative with chants.
Yeah,
it's fun.
They were brilliant. Speaking of brilliant, next was the Christian Cage Adam Copeland match. I mean, didn't even get the entrances. They started off in the aisle. I did love the Christian slogans that come up during his entrance. Was fantastic. I mean, this was the typical, old-fashioned no DQ match that you would have seen, maybe not say old-fashioned, saying in the 90s, the good old Attitude Era style no DQ match. They went everywhere. Copeland was diving off of everything that had a little bit of a height to it. He was jumping up. It was great to see Adam Copeland doing that as well, especially with the issues that he's had with his neck and what have you. He was cut open really early in it, and he got a second cut up just above his eye, which started to swell up. During this match as well, there was kendo sticks, there was chance of TLC, and they delivered on that. And then they said, "We want fire." They were baying for fire in New York. They certainly delivered that. The table did catch a light and then didn't catch a light, and then Adam Copeland had to relight the table. Nick Wayne's backside got put through it. He had he had a flaming backside during that. Copeland picked up the win and was the new TNT champion for about 11 seconds. Because then, as we mentioned earlier, Killswitch had won the Battle Royal, and this is what I predicted would happen. I said that Killswitch would win on Friday, Dave. I said that he would go. I then said that he would win it and betray Christian Cage. That bit didn't happen. Christian Cage basically whispered something in his ear to get the contract away, which Christian then signed, and then he picked up the victory after Killswitch had demolished Adam Copeland after that. Very Money in the Bank-esque vibes about that, and being the ultimate opportunist that Adam Copeland was, Christian seems to have taken that from him. But Dave, what did you enjoy the match, and could it, would you have changed the ending at all in that?
I did. So this portion of the show, I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed. So I've had my criticisms about the show overall, and some of the stuff was outside of the control. Really unfortunate with Keith Lee. The Andrade news, the Jericho news. There was stuff that they were up against, but I think this portion of the show, including Julia's defense, onwards, was really great. Classic AEW in a lot of respects. They really seem to put it together when it comes to pay-per-views, and I think this portion of the show proved that. Really enjoyed this match. I was watching, obviously, WWE during that Attitude Era. WWF did remind me of that. I think Copeland was actually wearing the gear that he wore against Foley kind of 10, 12 years ago. I'm not sure when that match, I think it was at the Rumble, the hardcore match.
Oh, Mania.
Oh, was it Mania? Yeah. I remember that match, and I think they mentioned on commentary that he was wearing that gear. Or I don't know if it was inspired or whether it was actually the same gear.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was, there was a nostalgia pop, but there was still the modern day feel to it as well. I really like Nick Wayne's involvement in it. Obviously, in the first match, it kind of hinged on Shayna's involvement at the end, which I didn't hate, but I really, really liked or loved Nick Wayne's involvement in the match, and his scheming and his little, jumping up onto the apron to causing distractions, and obviously got his comeuppance at the end, hitting the table. But I really enjoyed the match. In terms of the post-match angle, I would have liked Killswitch to have cashed in and won the title. Given the circumstances, he wouldn't have been my winner in the Battle Royal. I probably wouldn't have done the Battle Royal. But as they were going in that direction, I think they could have moved the story on a little bit if Killswitch would have won the title. Still aligned with Christian, but not as subservient. It seems to me now we're just back in the same situation we were a few weeks ago when Luchasaurus was kind of just the doting dinosaur at his side. I don't know. Christian, Copeland, brilliant storytellers, brilliant performers. I'm sure they've got a plan and it's all in hand. I like the fact that Copeland picked up the win because we were talking about that on the preview. I was worried if Christian were to win back-to-back matches, how that would leave Copeland. So the fact that he got the match win was a good way of doing it, that Christian still goes out on top, even though Copeland won the match. I would have just liked to have seen it done a little bit differently. And I would have liked to have seen that dynamic with Christian and Killswitch change a bit. And yeah, I don't know. If your thoughts are similar, Gary, or whether you've got a different take.
Yeah, so first and foremost, the match I thought was really, really good. That's what you expect with Adam Copeland and Christian. These guys been around for a couple decades, so it's the nostalgia with Copeland wearing the vest from WrestleMania 22 was a cool touch. As a big Copeland fan, I almost said Edge head, but I guess we can go with Copeland head. It was a really, really fun one. I do like the involvement with Nick Wayne as well. He's meant to take these really crazy spots. I mean, the guy was in GCW. I mean, he's known to be in that hardcore, direction in his matches. So I will say I like the fact that you brought up the whole, ultimate opportunist. This time the roles are reversing. Christian's one up. So I did think of that. So that was pretty cool to see. Here's what I think is going to happen though. I think eventually we are going to see Killswitch break away from Christian. I really, really do. Somebody made a trademark recently, so clearly he's not coming back as a heel. This man just filed for Jurassic Express, for that trademark to be done. I think we're going to see Jack Perry being back Jungle Boy. I just got that feeling now. Because Kill Switch with him being with Christian, I admit I loved it at first. Now it just feels like there's just nothing. Like it just feels really meh to me. So we shall see where that goes, but that's kind of what my thought process was going on right after when Christian wanted the, I almost said briefcase, contract. So that's what I think. And then easily, there's just no way this feud ends with Christian and Copeland. We always say the third match is the rubber match, right? Well, their third match is going to be when? I don't know. Is it going to be for a title? I don't know. But all I know is the next match, what I would do is 3 stages of hell. We got a glimpse of more of the Rated R superstar last night with Edge grabbing the ladder, him having that really crazy look in his eye, licking the ladder. Oh yeah, that's the Rated R superstar that I love and know. So, but those are my opinions on that. What do you think, Adam?
I want TLC between those two. That's how I want it to end.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I think they fingered it enough. They teased it enough during this. I want TLC for me to end that one. I agree. I think Jack Perry's coming back as Jungle Boy. I believe he's already trademarked it and something else along those lines actually as well. So that's actually what I thought was going to happen. So I had it all down to a T. I said that that Killswitch would win the Battle Royal, that he would cash in, and then align back to the returning Jack Perry on the show, but it didn't happen. So that was the last bit. So that's how I see that happening. But again, kudos to those two. I mean, they're both nearly 50 odd years old, and they're doing that sort of stuff, which just goes to show how great both are. Christian has been heel of the year for me. I haven't seen anyone better than Christian on that in that sense. Brilliant from both of them too. So and kudos to them doing that, putting them through.
And I'm glad we got a "Who's Your Daddy" chant, by the way. That's very famous in New York. Yeah, very famous in New York. So that was a nice touch too.
was a great touch for those two. The C2 final was next. This match for me, this was the story, the Rocky Balboa story from the moment the C2 started until the moment it finished. Eddie Kingston, Jon Moxley, Bryan Danielson was on commentary. It was everything you would have thought this match was going to be from these two. The whole story was around, can Eddie Kingston finally get the victory over Jon Moxley after about 15 years, loads of matches in different promotions, never managed to do it. He did have a very, very bad looking suicide dive at the start where he landed, I think, near enough on his neck and his head hit the guardrail. It was hard hitting. There was near falls. He tried to put Moxley in the bulldog choke. Moxley had him in it. It looked like he was going to go out. But Dave, this match had everything it needed to have, including the victory for Eddie Kingston at the end.
Pro wrestling perfection. I've said it, I said it a few times over more than a few times in the last 12 months. This was excellent. The match, the story, the emotion, Eddie finally, the run that he's had, the way he started the tournament, the challenges that he's overcome, the King of the Bums, the Danielson victory, and then to go up against Moxley, his best friend, a man that he's never beat in a match. Well, that's certainly, the story that was told. I just thought this was absolutely brilliant. This is why I love AEW. This type of match, this type of story, these characters. Eddie Kingston has had a phenomenal breakthrough year. Not only has he got to compete in the G1, but he's always been a fan of Japanese wrestling, and the Triple Crown was obviously something. I don't know if it's the 80s or the 90s. I think that was the era in Japan when there was Triple Crown champions there. So for him to become the first one in America, combining the Ring of Honor World title, New Japan Strong title, and the Continental Classic or the Continental Crown, I just thought this was perfect. The tournament was pretty much perfect. The story from start to finish, the fact that he lost his first two matches and he's triumphed and who he triumphed against and the manner of doing it, I just thought this was absolutely brilliant. Not got a bad word to say about it at all.
Now, do you echo that, Gary Joe? What a way to end that. As I said, the best tournament in wrestling for me.
I mean, to tell you the truth, I was thinking to myself when this was announced, I'm like, oh, okay. See, and again, Dave said something earlier, you need to be that alternative. This tournament showed this can, in fact, be that alternative. Unpredictable things has happened in this tournament. To me, that makes it very special. It's like Daniel Garcia beating Brody.
Yeah.
I did not expect that to happen. That's perfect. That's rejuvenating a future star. You get Danielson and Eddie Kingston, last Saturday on Collision. Is Eddie Kingston finally going to overcome that hurdle, or is Danielson finally going to actually perhaps go for a title? But it made sense with Eddie Kingston this entire time. Literally, the Mad King got his crown, and I love it so very much for Eddie Kingston. Everything that guy has been through. King of the Bums is what Dave said. It was cool. It was a great moment. I love that statement from Dave too. This is why I loved AEW as well. The matches that they put on that means something actually means something, and then the ending is always the beautiful fairy tale ending. Mox and Kingston hugging like that.
Yep.
Anybody that knows Mox and Kingston as a big wrestling fan knows those two are like blood brothers in real life. So the fact they hugged it out at the end was a nice touch to end that tournament. So damn happy for Eddie, and I love the comeback story. I'm a big sports guy, like a lot. Okay, I remember watching back like 4 or 5 years ago. The St. Louis Blues of the NHL. They were the worst team in the NHL going into like January of I think 2018. Like literally the worst team that you can possibly have. Next thing you know, the new year hits, boom, they were making big strides from the worst team in the NHL to the best team in the NHL by winning the Stanley Cup final, the biggest, like the Super Bowl of the NHL was a cool thing. So I love stories like that. I love the underdog story. Shit, I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan. Okay, we believe in the underdog story.
Yeah,
and let me tell you, it's so cool. I do agree with you, fellas. Easily the best tournament that I've seen in wrestling in years. Well, maybe the G1's really up there too, but I'm talking about for like, companies are based in America, so I think this is great, and I'm glad that TK is bringing it back next year. Let me ask you and Dave there, Adam. Would you like to see the women get their Continental Classic along with the men?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Bring that on. Bring the Women's Continental Classic on next year. Absolutely. I think that'd be great. Dave, do you agree? Would you like to see it win?
Yeah. I think, as I say, they need to continue the work that they're doing with the women's division and getting those foundations right, which they really, really have started to make massive strides with. But yeah, whether it's next year or 2025, a women's version, it would be great. If they announced it for next year, superb. But they're still in a stage of kind of building that women's roster. They've got some great talent there. But obviously the men's side of the roster, there's a lot more, there's a bigger talent pool, or there's more people there. So you've had people involved in the tournament that haven't been involved with other stories. So yeah, once they've got the stories and the foundations right, then yeah, absolutely. I'd love to see that. Last thing on this match, what was already perfection, but I thought Danielson on commentary added so much to it as well. I thought Danielson and Taz's insights into certain, the styles of the fight and, different moves. And there was a big bit about the bulldog choke. But I love Danielson's line as well when Kingston was in front of him and he said, "How did that guy beat me?" Like that, but he continued to put him over, and he was saying how much he was a better striker than him, and. But I love that little line as well. I love that Danielson cared and he really wanted to be in that match against Mox, but he still gave Kingston his flowers. I thought it was just perfection.
Absolutely. Here's to the C2 in 2024. We had one match left, which was the World Heavyweight title between Samoa Joe and MJF. MJF got a grand entrance, and then surprisingly, or unsurprisingly, depending on the way you want to look at it, brought out his brochacho, Mr. Adam Cole, come to ringside. Really good match. It told a good story. I thought the ending was a bit strange. I don't know if the referee... So Samoa Joe chokes out MJF. The referee pulls his hand down to 3. It did look as though maybe, I don't know if MJF was meant to kick out of it, because it looked like the ref was even surprised that his hand went down and he had to ring the bell. It was like, well, I've got to ring the bell because the hand went down to 3. Rang the bell. Samoa Joe wins the title, so there was no interference by him. He did try to get the Dynamite Diamond ring from Adam Cole, and Adam Cole couldn't find it.
Fumbled it, didn't it?
Fumbled it a little bit, yeah. I was kind of at that point, and we'll get to the devil bit in a minute. But Dave, with that match in general, was you? I mean, I suppose was you surprised that Samoa Joe win it, given the fact that we don't know for certain that MJF has re-signed, because he did say, 2024 bidding war and all that stuff. We have an inkling that he's already re-signed, but was you still surprised that Samoa Joe picked up the win in this?
It was a surprising moment. I mean, the crowd was certainly shocked. It was similar to kind of moment when the Undertaker streak ended, when Brock Lesnar got the pin, and the crowd kind of looked around like, "What has that just happened?"
Yeah.
And the interesting thing as well, they did that moment with Eddie and Mox in the match before about the hand dropping, and Eddie obviously got his hand up.
Yeah.
So when they started doing it, I was kind of thinking, "Oh, they did this in the last match." So, but when his hand dropped, still, I was totally shocked and surprised, and I thought it was a great moment, to be honest. Just didn't expect it. I think that probably was the plan by design, and I think Bryce played his part as well, really well. I think it was a good night for the referees overall. Yeah, good match again. I think MJF is legitimately injured. He's got the shoulder injury and a hip injury, I believe. So, although obviously they've been playing on that in the story, he is injured. Given what he said in that article, the Players Tribune, I don't think he's leaving AEW. I think I'd be massively surprised if he were to kind of turn up in WWE down the line, even when he's recovered from his injuries. I think he's going to be in AEW for a long time yet. That's not to say that he won't go over there one day, but I think the immediate future, we'll see him back in AEW as soon as he's ready and able to do so. But yeah, it kind of caught me off guard, but I've been saying for a long time I'd love Samoa Joe to get a world title run, so I'm not disappointed. Given the fact that it was on Long Island as well, where MJF's from, I think that added another element of kind of confusion and shock to it. But yeah, I enjoyed it.
Me too. Gary J, we'll get your views in a second as well. But let's just talk to you about the Devil and his dude. So at the end of this match, the dudes did come out. They started attacking MJF and a little bit of Adam Cole. Adam Cole's in the ring at this point. They then position them both down. They got them basically in front of them for a chair shot. They're all MJF's telling them to hit him. Adam Cole's telling them to hit him. Lights go out. They come back on, and Adam Cole is sitting on the chair with the dudes behind him who take off their masks to be the Kingdom and Wardlow. So Gary Joe, your thoughts on the match, and did they get the Devil? The most important thing me and Dave said is they had to get this Devil storyline right. Do you believe they got it right?
I think they do, and I say this because sure, it may have been predictable with Adam Cole, right? But this is where it gets very intriguing. I love the ending with Excalibur saying MJF's world has come to an end, and they end the show. The thing that I loved about that is I think everybody is really uncertain with MJF for sure. Everybody really is like, this is what I feel like this was planned by design with MJF. He wants to be the talk of the town. He wants the spotlight to be on him, and I think this was all planned. Do I agree with Adam Cole being the devil? This, again, this makes me believe 110%. There is no way this storyline with MJF and Cole ends like that. There's no way.
Yeah.
I do like the fact that Dave brought up the injury. He's going to have time to heal. He's going to have time to, do what he's going to do. And when he's going to come back, I'm going to say right around Revolution. I got that feeling. This time, so I pay attention very closely with AEW.
Yeah.
And, with their little segments, snippets, whatever you may call it. If people believe that MJF is gone, I think they should pump the brakes a little bit, because Samoa Joe, his post-match little thing backstage last night where he's like, something at the end of that promo for the little exclusive backstage thing, Joe was like, well, you just wanted your own destiny, which that makes me believe MJF wants his own dynasty.
Yeah.
Alexander Hammerstone, Richard Holiday. I think MJF is going to one-up on the devil and his henchmen. I really got that feeling. Because if you end MJF's time in AEW like that, like, what was the reason of building this for months then?
Yeah.
It makes no sense. So I'm glad that Adam Cole is a heel. I have been saying this right after when he got injured. Sure, it was sad because I love the Brotachos together. But at the same time, Adam Cole was amazing in NXT as a heel. It was amazing in ROH as a heel. Adam Cole is meant to be that heel.
Yeah.
So I think they're definitely going to milk Cole being a heel for a while, which is very smart. Because everybody feels like, oh my gosh, this heel is really destroying AEW. Who's going to come and save it? MJF is going to come and save it again. I'm very, very intrigued. This is to see what happens with the new year for AEW. This is a very important year for the company, because with everything going on with the TV rights and everything. But man, I love the ending. I really did. I thought maybe we were going to see a Swerve at first. I really thought we were going to see MJF actually be the devil the whole entire time.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I miss with wrestling a little bit, is the shocking surprise factor. Like, did that really just happen? So, but I do agree. He definitely needs time to heal, get that injury all healed up, and he'll come back better than ever.
Indeed. Dave, is it a case of sometimes, the most predictable is sometimes the absolute best way of doing it as well? But if you remember way back to All In, and obviously I wasn't there due to health, but I saw the backstage bit between Adam Cole and MJF, and above Adam Cole's head was a devil's mask back then, way back in August. So is it a case of sometimes the most predictable way is the best way of doing it?
Absolutely. And Cole's got the motivation as well. That huge moment at All In when he comes up short against Max. I predicted it. I said from the start it was going to be Adam Cole. And they did a pretty good job of putting other people in the frame and who was involved, and we've been fantasy booking it and speculating it for weeks. But I thought the way they did the reveal was great. I loved how when the lights came back on, Adam Cole was sitting on the chair staring at Max, and Max just couldn't believe that he'd done it to him. I really can't criticize this. I think it's been a great story. I think the reveal was really good. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it makes a lot of sense that Roddy, because it was like a ridiculous story, wasn't it? Like some of the things that Roddy was saying and doing, and he was a bit childlike. So the fact that that was all a ruse kind of makes sense. And I think the Roddy got the knee strike in first as well.
Yeah.
That kind of legitimizes him. All the stuff with the wheelchair, it was funny, it was entertaining, but it was a ruse ultimately. And I think Wardlow's involvement as well makes a lot of sense. He said he was going to bring the devil to his knees. And Max was there on his knees. At the end, we've lost his world title. He'd lost his best friend. His world had ended, as Gary Joe said, and as Excalibur said as the show closed out. I think this was great, and I'm looking forward to hearing Adam Cole's explanation, or when they hit the ring on, I would imagine they'll be on Dynamite, and we'll hear from Adam Cole. Just perfect again. I really, really enjoyed the last hour or so of this show. I thought it was really, really good.
Yeah, the last hour certainly made up for the sort of mixed bag that was the first couple of hours for sure.
Yeah.
But guys, we've wrapped up the World's End.
Scores.
We have in scores on the doors. Unfortunately, I'm only going to go 6.5. I think that last hour, if it weren't for that last hour, I don't know how low the score would have been, to be quite honest with you. And that's probably one of the worst, not one of the worst. I think that was AEW's worst pay-per-view, but that's because the rest have set the bar so high. And you are going to get dips in the market. You are going to get dips and troughs. It is going to be like a roller coaster when it comes to these pay-per-views. You are going to get good and bad. It is natural. So for me, it was the worst that I've seen, but that's not because it was that bad. It was just because the rest have been that good.
Yeah.
Dave, what did you give it?
I'm going to go with a 7. I think talking about it and talking it through with you two guys, I feel much more positive now. And given like the big stories as well and the reveal, Samoa Joe as the world champion, Swerve moving on, and because we could be sitting here and Swerve could have lost, we might not have had a devil reveal, or we might have had a devil reveal that was disappointing or a bit anticlimactic. I think the fact that it was Adam Cole, even though it's predictable, is the right thing for the story, and it makes perfect sense. I think we're going to get a lot of good stuff off the back of it. I think there's other people as well, like Kyle O'Reilly, that might be brought into this new faction and this new group that Adam Cole's obviously heading up. I thought Kingston Moxley was just 10 out of 10. That's right up there for me. I know recency bias, but that's one of my matches of the year. So I think overall, given how the show closed and the last hour or so of the show, I'm going to go with a 7 out of 10.
Right. Gary Joe, what do you give it?
Well, I do like the fact you say 6.5 out of 10. I wholeheartedly agree with that grade. I did my pros and cons on Honor of the Elite last night. I will not disagree. This was definitely, their weakest pay-per-view to date. But like I said, on a positive note, you can't win them all. You're not going to get a grand slam every single time. That includes every company out there. You can have an amazing pay-per-view 1 week, not 1 week, but 1 month, and then the next month it just depends. But this is the bright side. I'm a stickler with numbers. AEW, people can say what they want because of what they want to post online. This was actually one of the best revenue years in the company's history. That says a lot. I'm very excited for AEW.
Everything's growing, moving in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Sure, there's changes already happening. I feel what they're doing is a hard reset with, the departures and stuff like that. People come and go. This pay-per-view, yeah. I think maybe because of the distractions going in, the whole thing with Jericho and Andrade, with his departure, it was tough to watch for sure at times. But yeah, the last couple matches, thankfully, it was a saving grace for me. So yeah, and I guess we're off to a new revolution. So
yeah, definitely so. That's in March. And just a quick one, because I've just read something that's again while we've been talking, and you were talking about maybe potential incomings behind the scenes, and Kevin Dunn has left WWE after 30 years in the role.
Yeah, I
That
heard that earlier. Yeah.
I think that's every WWE's wish come true.
Maybe.
um, Kevin Dunn has been very controversial with some of his stuff. Some very interesting stuff, some good stuff. Um, Wherever he goes next, I wish him the best. So I really do.
Yep, definitely so.
I would imagine he's retiring, given
Got
the.
enough.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think perhaps when Triple H come in, and Triple H has gone for a more sports-based style.
Mhm.
It was just a very different direction to what Vince and company have been doing. So yeah, it didn't massively surprise me, but obviously he's been there for so long. He's part of the furniture. So yeah, he's provided us with some good entertainment over the years, as wrestling fans. But yeah, I think Triple H, um, yeah, I think he's got his vision, and I'm not surprised that Kevin Dunn's not part of that anymore.
Yeah, definitely so. Well, guys, this has been the last show of 2023. So we want to thank everyone, not only Dave, you. I'm so happy and proud that you've come along to join us on the podcast, and I can't wait to have more podcast review in the future for all of our guests that have come on, from Vince Russo at the start to Eric Bischoff at the end, and everyone everyone in between. Thank you all so much for coming on. We've already got a handful of guests in January that are coming on. I've been announcing them through the day. There's one more that I will announce tomorrow, but I'll leave you with that. But guys, follow the Honor Elite Facebook page. Please do go on, search on that on Facebook. They're there. They only have 37 something thousand already. That's where we want to be. But we do thank Gary Joe for coming on this show as well. Catch us on Twitter at HTT Buckle, hitting the Turnbuckle podcast, and all other social outlets. And that is how you can find us. We will see you on the other side of 2024. But as this is an AEW show, Dave, you know where I'm going with this. Lead us out with the outro, please.
Get your guns ready, boys, because it's time to bid you all adieu, goodbye, mwah, and good night. Bang.
New Year, everybody.